Okay, we're up to chapter 14. We're going to do some on chapter 14. And then we're going to move to volume 2. Okay, I'm going to get the door. It's nice. We have a nice intimate group today. Israel's here, but Hashem. There is a war going on. It's good we're here. What do you hear from Eyal? When is he coming?
He said he booked a flight on 20th of November.
28th?
20th.
20th. Another 3 weeks.
So hopefully flight will not be cancelled.
Hopefully. Okay, sounds good. And did you manage to reach Michael Bittman?
Haven't reached out to him yet, but he had said he, because I don't know what point of contact they try to do conversation, maybe in Facebook, I don't know. So I might ask you again.
Ask you to reach him, of course, yeah. Sounds good. Okay, so personal grooming. You think, well, what melacha could be involved? What could be wrong with personal grooming? So we're going to see there's a number of different melachot that once we define the 39 categories of work from the activities involved in building the Beit HaMikdash, then we take those as categories and we see if any of them apply. One of those categories of work, I don't see the book, it's up there, that we're going to start with, thank you, is the Melacha, number 30 of the 39, called, once we said we dealt with food, and then we dealt with clothing, right? So preparing food, preparing clothing, everything involved. Then the next thing is preparing not only clothing from textiles, but also from skins. There were skins used in the temple. And so we have tzad, trapping, and shochet, slaughtering, mafshit, skinning the animal, and then me'abed, which is processing the skins with chemicals. And then we get into Mesartet and Kotev, right? You write on the skins, you write on the parchment. So first you smooth it, then you cut the lines into it, and then you cut it to the right size, and ultimately sometimes you write on it and erase from it. So this is the next series that has to do with not textiles, but has to do with skins, with processing animal hides and so forth. And all these different stages, believe it or not, we have to be careful not to do them on us. Not only on other animals, but even on human animals. So for example, you're not allowed to do shochet. Shochet, so obviously you're not supposed to kill anybody, even if it's not Shabbat. But shochet, that's the av melacha. But the way it's defined is that anytime you cause a loss of blood or an injury where that's considered to be an element of shochet. It's part of injuring, so that blood is drawn. That is also prohibited. But let's start, and we'll see. We'll start chapter 14, and we'll see that many different melachot get involved, and we'll see them as we go. He uses a very practical approach. So what different types of grooming issues that come up when you are grooming your body. Okay, the first one, chapter 14, section 1. Gozez, Idan, you want to read?
Gozes, shearing. The malacha of gozes, shearing, is the removal of things that grow on the body, such as hair, nails, warts, loose skin, and the like. In contrast, one who actually cuts skin and draws blood transgresses the prohibition of chovel.
Chovel is what I was saying before. That's the tolada of shochet. So there's gozes is even. Cutting anything out from the body. If you draw blood, then that's a special one of it's a derivative of killing the animal and killing a person. A person's drawing blood from him is like causing him an injury, a wound. But then other things that if you try to take them off your body, that's like gozes. What was gozes? He's going to explain now. Okay, go ahead.
For the Mishkan, lamb's wool was sheared and then made into threads that was used to make the curtains. Similarly, hair was sheared from takash skins so that the skin would be smooth and thus fit for use as curtains of Mishkan. We see that sometimes shearing is done in order to use material that is attached to a body, as in the case when sheep's wool is needed to make thread. Sometimes it is done to remove something unwanted, as in the case when removing unwanted hairs to improve animal skins. Unlike the Melcha of Putzer, where the prohibition applies only if one cuts off a plant from its life source, here the prohibition applies to shearing wool from the skin of the dead animal as well, because even after an animal's death, there is still a purpose to shearing its wool. Therefore, one must be careful not to pull out threads from a fur coat or a leather carpet. If doing so serves a purpose, the prohibition is by Torah law. If there is no purpose, the prohibition is rabbinic. Included in the Melacha Gozes is plucking feathers from a chicken. However, one may pluck feathers from a cooked chicken. This is because after the chicken is cooked, it is considered food, and the prohibition of shearing does not apply to food.
That's good. Sometimes the chicken they serve you buy the cheaper kind and still has a few feathers on it. You have to.
But isn't it like borer if you separate?
Good point. Yes, it may be a problem of borer. You're right. You won't have a problem of gozes, but you will have a problem of borer. You're right. Unless you take it off with some of the skin, take it off with some of the good. Then it's not only the bad that you're taking off. Then you could avoid the problem of borer, like we said yesterday, with the fly and the spoon, together with some of the soup that you're allowed to take off together with something else, so you would avoid the problem of borer, and then you just have the issue of gozes. Gozes is not a problem once it's cooked. Anyways, sharing, we're going to see by humans, it's also we take hair off. Did you shave this morning? Not too many people here are shaving. Did you take a haircut? Go ahead. Section 2.
Gozes and a chovel of human beings. Just as one may not shear an animal's wool, so too may one not remove anything growing from the human body, such as hair, nails, loose skin, and warts. One who removes them in the usual fashion transgresses a Torah prohibition, while one who removes them with a shinui transgresses a rabbinic prohibition. Therefore, one who cuts nails using nail scissors or clippers transgresses a Torah prohibition, while one who pulls them off with his teeth transgresses a rabbinic prohibition. One should make every effort to stop biting his nails entirely. Apart from being impolite, a habitual nail biter is likely to bite his nails on Shabbat as well, thus violating Shabbat.
Oh, you got an extra reason now not to bite your nails. Careful, because you might do it on Shabbat. On Shabbat, it's probably a rabbinic prohibition because you're not using a nail clippers, but it's still prohibited. It's gozes. Even in humans, there's a problem with gozes. You're shearing. So women who wax their legs, pull off the hair, don't do it on Shabbat. Okay? If you shave, don't do it on Shabbat. Go ahead.
Similarly, one may not remove warts. If the wart is wet, cutting it with an instrument is a Torah prohibition, while removing it with a shinui by teeth or hands is a rabbinic transgression. If the wart is dried out and liable to fall off on its own, then even removing it with an instrument is only a rabbinic transgression. One may not scrape the body to remove skin that has begun to peel. One may not even use one's teeth to remove the skin from his chapped lips. However, one may remove dandruff, since it is only very loosely attached to the skin and falls out readily. If a nail was torn off most of the way and is now painful, it may be removed using one's hands or one's teeth. Since most of it has already been torn off, it is viewed as if it has already fallen off, and the prohibition to finishing the job is only rabbinic. The sages permit removing the nail with a shinui if it is causing pain. One may not scratch a cut in a way that will make it bleed, because doing so constitutes kovel. Even though one who scratches it is not interested in drawing blood, it is still rabbinically prohibited. Similarly, one may not brush his teeth if it is almost certain that his gums will bleed. One may not knowingly suck the blood out of his gums after brushing them to the point that they bleed, as this constitutes kovel. One may remove a splinter lodged in a person's flesh as long as one is careful not to draw blood. If the splinter is painful, one may remove it even if it will certainly cause bleeding. This is because drawing blood in this situation is rabbinically prohibited, and the sages did not extend their prohibition to cases that entail such pain. One may remove a scab from a wound that is dried and will not bleed upon the scab's removal. This does not qualify as gozed, since scabs do not grow from the body, but rather are just dried blood from a wound.
All right, so some people, raise your hand, have cuts in their skin and skin that peels off very easily. There's a skin condition called psoriasis that I have, a few people in my family have. Baruch Hashem, a very light case. So, but it does mean that my skin grows a little faster than it should, and I keep getting extra layers of skin, and so the skin is always peeling off, and I get cuts in my hand. You can see I have a band-aid here, I have a cut here, constantly have this issue. Baruch Hashem, it's not so bad. There are others that have it all over their body. People have it and they really suffer much worse. But it's a challenge on Shabbat not to peel off the skin. Now it's true. If it's mostly off, you heard, it's considered to be already off. And if you do it not in the normal way, then it's allowed if it's causing pain. But it doesn't usually cause me pain. Sometimes it can be painful, but in any case, really we should try to avoid cutting things off of our skin, off of our nails on Shabbat whatsoever. And if it's a habit, like he said earlier, with the biting the nails, then it's much harder on Shabbat. So try not to get into bad habits, and don't cut your nails on Shabbat. You have to cut them before Shabbat. The interesting point he mentioned here is, which is very relevant, and that is brushing teeth. Brushing teeth, the major problem is, there's a few problems. The major problem he dealt with here is that many people, when they brush their teeth, their gums bleed. Maybe you have strong gums and they don't bleed. So you don't have that problem. But many people do. Sometimes it develops later in life. The gums above the teeth and below the teeth that hold the teeth, they many times bleed when you brush your teeth, and you're not allowed to cause yourself to bleed. That's the prohibition of chovel. We said that's the derived from shoched. So it's one. It could be that. If that's the normal way, then you're in trouble. That's why many Orthodox Jews do not brush their teeth on Shabbat. There are solutions, however, to avoid bad breath. It might be a big mitzvah to brush your teeth. So how do you do that? So first of all, that's only one problem. If your gums are going to bleed, there's no real way to do it unless you have a very, very soft toothbrush and you're sure that it's not going to bleed. And if you don't have that, then just use mouthwash. You can wash your mouth out without brushing it. Just don't brush your gums. If the gums are going to bleed, you can't brush your gums. That's one problem. What other problems could there be in brushing your teeth? Some people say that this was more true in older toothbrushes. The toothbrushes were made actually of hair. And the hair sort of absorbs water. It's sort of like a sponge. And we talked yesterday about the problem of laundering, and you can't use a sponge. And so, but nowadays, almost all the toothbrushes are made from synthetic materials, and you just have to be careful. Most of them don't hold water, so they're not really sponge-like, so the toothbrushes are okay. There's another problem that hopefully we're going to get to soon. He might speak about it in a few moments, but I'll just I'll mention it. Yeah, he has it at the end. There's one with something about brushing teeth at the end. Maybe we'll read it now. We'll jump. Should we jump or should we wait? What do you think? Should we jump to toothbrushes and section 8? We're on section 2. Should we wait? We're going to get it. We're going to get to it at the end of the class. So let's discuss more. But here he just mentioned this issue that if you know that you're going to be drawing blood, you have to avoid that. And so gozez and chovel apply even to human beings. Okay, so far so good. We avoid not only work, but toiling with sweat. So you can't work on Shabbat. Even if it's not doing business. What's defined as work is those categories that were used to build the Mishkan. And that included processing the animals and the textiles, the food, everything that we mentioned up till now. And that gets to even the issue of taking off skin off of your dry skin or things like that. So we avoid gozez and chovel. Those are 2 categories. Let's see what else this means. Go ahead, section 3. Shmuel, will you read for us?
Brushing. One may not brush or comb one's hair on Shabbat because when doing so, hairs are pulled out. This is actually a beneficial phenomenon. Every day a person sheds dozens of hairs naturally. People would rather that hairs with weak roots be pulled out during brushing rather than fall out on their own in the course of the day, thus making their hair unkempt and their clothes untidy. In any event, since one may not brush his hair on Shabbat, brushes are considered muktzeh and may not be removed on Shabbat. Sorry, may not be moved. Nevertheless, one who wishes to make one's hair neater may use a special brush with soft or widely spaced bristles so that there is a reasonable chance that it will not pull out hair. Then even if he does happen to pull out hair, he does not violate the Menachem. This is because his intention is not to pull out hair. Hair will not necessarily be pulled out, and the brush is not moved. In order to make sure it does not look like he's using a prohibited brush, it is advisable to designate a brush for use specifically on Shabbat.
Okay, this is the principle we learned yesterday about the Varshay Nomit Kaven. The guy who's dragging the bench, if it's a light bench, he's allowed to drag it because his point is to move the bench from one side to the other. Maybe it'll cause a furrow, maybe not. If that's not your intention, then it's allowed. So too, if it's a brush which won't necessarily pull out hair, then you can use it. Most brushes, I'm not speaking that much from experience, although I have a daughter who, when she was small, used to comb her hair. I haven't had hair in a while that is worthy of a comb or a brush. But those who do have hair and they brush their hair regularly, women usually have longer hair and they deal with their hair. It's a big deal. It's part of their personal grooming. It's quite a challenge to not brush your hair on Shabbat.
Use their fingers?
Yeah, using your fingers is not going to pull out necessarily hairs, but using most brushes, you could find a baby brush somewhere. It's very, very soft. And you can use that on Shabbat, but it's very impractical. But most brushes that you buy in the store, they're going to pull out hair. That's almost for sure. And therefore, you shouldn't be brushing your hair on Shabbat. That's why you'll see a lot of women, what they do on Shabbat morning, right at night, they're all set, okay? They can, get all prepared for Shabbat and brush their hair nicely. But then they go to sleep at night, and your hair gets all mushed everywhere, and it gets messed up. So usually every morning they brush their hair. But they can't on Shabbat. So many times I put it up in a ban or some kind of a what?
Net.
No, I haven't seen that used too often. But just gather their hair with a band. of some sort. And it's another fashion, but it's harder to get your loose hair to stay neat over time if you're not going to brush it. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge for women who like to make themselves pretty. Everybody likes to make themselves pretty, but even more so women. They have to be strong and not violate the Shabbat. If you brush your hair and the hair is for sure going to be pulled out, you're not allowed to brush your hair. One may gently rub. Here, you asked about your hands. Here you go. That's the beginning of page 280. Shmuel, you asked really what's happening in the next paragraph. Go ahead.
One may gently rub one's hair or beard. One may use one's fingers to arrange them and to remove anything stuck in them, as long as one is careful not to pull out hairs. Even if these actions might cause hairs to be removed, one may do so as this is unintentional. One who generally tugs at his beard in a way that causes hair to be pulled out must refrain from doing so.
You even see some rabbis, they're sitting there, pulling, not on Shabbat, not on Shabbat. Okay, so this is why? Why can't you pull out hairs? What's the melacha of the 39 categories?
Threshing.
No, threshing? Threshing is when you separate kernels from a stalk. Gozez, there you go. That's what you meant. Gozez.
So even if I do this in Shabbat, it's prohibited?
Well, if the hairs come out. If they don't come out,
but if
then they're
not
fine.
In my intention, like...
Is it for sure going to happen? You learned the principle yesterday, right? If it's the heavy bench that for sure is going to cause the furrow, it's prohibited even if you don't intend it. But if it may not, then you're allowed. Because that's not your intention, right?
Was it a term again?
So the terms are as follows. The thin bench, the light bench, which is allowed, is called davar she'eino mitkaven. You don't intend to make a furrow. And that's allowed. Davar she'eino mitkaven, not intended. However, even if it's unintended, you just want to sit down on the bench. If it's psik reishei, cut off its head, if it's a situation where it necessarily is going to happen, like the chicken's going to die if you cut off its head, that's necessary, that's an inevitable conclusion, then even though it's davar she'eino mitkaven, it's not intentional, it's still asur. So davar kishen koven, if it's not psik reisha, then it's allowed, and if it is psik reisha, it's not allowed. Okay, so that's general. It's a good thing to know. In many melachot of Shabbat, if it's an unintended consequence, do you have to worry about it or not worry about it? Many times, what the critical point will be: is it for sure going to happen or not for sure? Is it inevitable? Is it psik reisha or not? All right, go ahead. Now this is an interesting one. We talked about women with long hair or men with long hair. What else do we do to hair? We brush our hair. You can do it with your fingers. As long as you're not pulling out hairs unintentionally. Most brushes are problematic. But what else will we do with our hair? We make braids. Some girls make braids in their hair. Now this is, surprisingly, but it's also forbidden. Go ahead, Shmuel.
The sages forbade braiding hair on Shabbat because making a braid resembles the Menachem. Similarly, one may not undo a braid because this resembles the Menachem soter. One may gather hair into a ponytail as this does not create a structure. Similarly, one may part one's hair using one's hands, but one may not use a brush or comb to do so, as this will pull out hairs.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, that you'll see a lot more ponytails on Shabbat morning in religious girls, because they don't, even if there was a braid there, the braid gets loose, and they can't redo their braid, they have to just put in a ponytail, gather it up, and put some kind of a rubber band on it or something like that. Okay, braiding a wig, we can skip. Curling one's hair, skip one paragraph. This is applicable to men, speaking to you. I don't see too many of you with peot. Yisrael, Yosef, you have peot. My son has nice long peot. Many people curl their peot. Have you seen that? How does it get so curly? Well, some people have naturally curly hair, but some people, they actually want the peot to be curly. So they sort of fashion them, they form that shape by twisting them around all the time. So it's rabbinically prohibited to curl one's hair, which includes men curling their side locks, because this is similar to boneh. It's like making a braid. Straightening hair or side locks is prohibited because of soter. That's something else. That's undoing. That's like undoing. If it was braided up, you can't undo it. It's the opposite of boneh, is soter. The opposite of building is tearing down. But now here comes the heter. You think all those Hasidim are going to listen to you? If the side locks were already curled, they may be twirled. Even though this may tighten the curls, because no new structure is formed. If it's already been curly beforehand, you're not really making a new curl. So you're not creating a new structure, you're just sort of strengthening what's already there. So then you will find a lot of Hasidic boys and men who continue, not only do they do this on Shabbat, but they continue to do this and curl. As they're learning, they're not thinking about it even. They just go, that's natural. It's a natural, sort of fidget to do with your hands. It can be justified because the curls were already started from before Shabbat. You're not actually creating them on Shabbat. But I'm machmir on that, so I don't have those kind of payot. Okay? And you're not allowed to use spray, he goes on to say, on the hair, because it's also similar to bonnet, but of course perfume or deodorant is allowed. If it's spray, we're going to see now in the rest of the chapter here about other types of bodily grooming, creams and perfumes and so forth. We'll see this presently. Okay, but so much we did the hair, and we did the nails, and gozez and chovel were our primary concerns. A little bit bonnet, a little bit building a structure. Sometimes you can build a structure out of your hair, and that's a problem with the braids. And good, we're up to applying makeup. Makeup brings us to another malacha. Yes?
Sometimes summer very hot. Can shower cool water?
Coming up soon.
But
The next
cannot.
coming up soon.
Oh,
Coming up soon. We're going to learn all about showering in detail in section 8. Okay, when and how you're allowed to shower. Okay, so we're in section 4. A few more minutes, we'll get there. Okay. All right. Applying makeup. One of the 30-day malachot forbidden on Shabbat is tzovea. Here we have an additional malacha. What's tzovea? If you remember back to the list of 39 when we were taking the shearing the wool from the sheep, and then blanching it, bleaching it, and then that's laundering. We said is a derivative of that. And then you straighten it out, you comb out the hair, and then you dye it before you weave it into, or spin it into threads. And then you weave the threads and so forth. So dyeing, steeping that wool into a vat with boiling hot water and some dye. Until today, they use dyes from nature. Sometimes, of course, there's chemical dyes as well, synthetic dyes. But the point is, to color a garment was forbidden. Tzovea, it's one of the 39 stages of the work done in the Mishkan. So how does that apply to people? Let's see. One of the 30 malachot forbidden, Yosef, we read first section 4.
Applying makeup. One of the 39 malachot forbidden on Shabbat is tzovea, dye. By Torah law, it is limited to long-lasting paints or dyes applied to surfaces that will retain them for an extended period. The sages, however, prohibited even color that will not last for a long period, and even if it is applied to a surface that will not retain the color. One example of this is the prohibition on the use of makeup, which colors one's skin for a short time. According, one who may not use eyeshadow, blush, lipstick, or clear lip gloss that provides a shine. Similarly, one may not use even clear nail polish because the shine it provides is considered color. While this prohibition pertains to applying makeup, removing makeup with water or cotton is permissible. Cotton balls soaked in water should not be used because of the prohibition of shechita. Shechita.
Schita, that's what we said, the squeezing. We talked about that yesterday, not to squeeze out synthetics. So obviously a cotton ball soaked with water, that's like a sponge. You're not allowed to use that. But a dry cotton ball or using water without any cotton is allowed to take off the makeup. The problem is applying the makeup, you're essentially painting yourself. Painting is coloring. You're not allowed to do that on Shabbat. Not only a piece of paper, not only if you color a piece of wool, if you color your face, that's also a prohibition of tzoveya. Tzoveya. So it is also forbidden. Go ahead.
It is also forbidden to apply foundation, cosmetic used to even out one's complexion. This prohibition is more severe than the prohibition on using other types of makeup, because in addition to transgressing the rabbinic prohibition of tzeveya, one might also transgress the Torah prohibition of mamereyah, if one is using cream foundation. One may use powder, however, whether white or colored, because powder has no adhesive agent. It is only when the material used for coloring adheres to the skin that there is a prohibition of tzeveya. In the contrast, if it just stays on the surface of the face and does not adhere to it, one may apply some are stringent even in such cases. However, since this disagreement pertains to a rabbinic prohibition, the halakha is in accordance with those who are lenient.
So there is something, you can go to the store and buy something called Shabbat makeup.
No.
Shabbat makeup. And the difference is, like he says here, it's powder with no oils in it, no adhesive agent. So basically, you're allowed to like pour powder on your body. You're not coloring the body. You're just sort of like creating a cover. It's like putting a blanket on. You're allowed to put on a blanket. It doesn't, if it's not attached to the body, there's no prohibition. So basically, what Shabbat makeup is this. It's basically powder without any oils or adhesive agents which make it stick to the skin, and obviously it won't last as long. It's not as good as the regular makeup that women put on their faces, so that it stays that color. But what can you do? It's Shabbat. You're not allowed to do tzoveya, so you do the best you can do. And so there's actually a whole category. There's a type of makeup called Shabbat makeup, which is usable, at least according to Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rav Avadia Yosef. Some people are machmer and they say, no, that's too similar. Don't get involved in makeup. The last paragraph is important to appreciate. Go ahead. Prohibition.
The prohibition on wearing makeup is one of the most difficult to follow. For a woman who are used to putting on makeup every day, it is not easy to refrain from doing so on Shabbat, especially since it is precisely Shabbat when everyone tries to look their best. However, if we explore the issue more deeply, perhaps we can suggest that this, on the contrary, relates to the main idea of Shabbat, a day of holiness and rest. Shabbat is when we take a break from the tension that we experience throughout the week. We work so hard to present ourselves to others as more beautiful than we naturally are, in an attempt to meet society's cruel and superficial standards of beauty. In contrast, Shabbat helps us to truly relax by strengthening our faith and belief in divine providence. We can achieve this spiritual relaxation when we attain an internal acceptance of existence as it is, and an appreciation of our natural beauty, which we highlight with clothing and jewelry. This is owning Shabbat. Nevertheless, before Shabbat, one may and even should put on makeup. The sages state one who labors before Shabbat will eat on Shabbat. Is it? During the week, it is our
Go ahead.
mission to fix the world, improve it, and prepare it for Shabbat. This allows us to absorb the divine light more completely. However, if we are unable to prepare ourselves fully or for Shabbat, for example, we know that makeup applied on Friday will not last through the whole Shabbat. Rule of Shabbat. Once Shabbat arrives, we must calmly and joyfully accept existence as it is. Every acceptance is what will allow us to continue to fix and improve the world during the week.
That's another feature of the Shabbat makeup, the special makeup, is it's either powder, like I said, without any adhesive agent, or it's long lasting, as it's one that's going to last for 25 hours. You put it on before Shabbat, it'll last longer than the usual makeup, and that can also. So there's also the industry, cosmetics industry, for religious women is quite developed, and it's important because it could be a violation of Tzovea.
I will bring that up.
That's the name of the tractate in the Talmud that it comes from. Okay, so we learned about makeup. It's important to know and to appreciate that it's a need. It's a normal need, and it can be very difficult. Some women they're messed up by Western society, and they feel they can't even go out of the house every day unless they're put on makeup. Feel like they're undressed or not presentable with their natural skin color or whatever it is, and it's hard. It's very hard, and so it is for those people a big mitzvah to guide them towards the Shabbat makeup if that's what they need, and it's a big mitzvah. But ultimately, of course, we should be training ourselves to accept who we are and our natural skin color. And it's easy to say, of course, but he tries to say that it involves spiritual relaxation, internal acceptance of existence as it is, and he tries to put a nice twist on it. It's easier said, I think, than done, but there are, as I said, there's an industry of kosher for Shabbat makeups. It doesn't only apply to makeup though. Makeup we've been talking about now is like lipstick and colors and powders and rouge and all sorts of eyeliner, all those kind of things where you're painting the body. But the women's cosmetic industry has a lot more than that. There's perfumes and creams, there's skin moisturizer for the face and for the hands and for every part of the body. There's a different complicated number of ingredients and oils, lotions of all kinds, and a lot of people use these every single day. Comes Shabbat, it could be problematic. Why? Well, it's not gozez, you're not cutting off any skin. You're not not drawing any blood. It's not chovel. You're not dyeing the body. It's not any color. You're not applying any color. What could be the problem? Right? It's not gozes. It's not chovel. It's not. You're not bonnet. You're not braiding anything like the hair. You're not creating. What could be the problem? We have to learn another malacha. What's the malacha here? Mimareyach. Mimareyach is, if you look at the top of page 283. Although one may rub his body with oil, because it's liquid, you're allowed to, he may not apply cream. The big problem is cream and lotions. Because of the prohibition of memarech, which is a tolada of memachik. What is that? Well, we saw it here, skinning, smoothing the skin. Memachik refers to smoothing rough surfaces, such as leather or wood, while memarech, the derivative of that, the tolada of the av of memachek involves evenly applying a substance to an object in order to make it smooth. Therefore, one may not apply any type of cream. I'm on page 283, line 6. Or ointment to the skin, because in doing so, one smooths the cream onto the skin. So we can't really use creams or lotions on Shabbat. Now there is some debate about it. He says here, some object that this should not be prohibited since the cream is meant to be absorbed by the body rather than to remain on the surface. However, this is incorrect, since even when one wants the cream to be absorbed, he also wants some of it to remain on the skin surface to make it smooth. Hence the prohibition of memarech applies. In contrast, if the cream is watery, such that it is left on a surface, it will spread out, then there's no prohibition of memarech, and one may apply it to the body. Then it's more like liquid, as I said, liquids is allowed. So basically, if you need to rub your body with something and you feel so dry, use oil. Have any kind of oil or any kind of liquid, as long as it's, or if you have a lotion which is very loose, it's very runny, it's like a liquid. You can use that, but not if it gets to the status of a cream or a lotion, which is more congealed, because then you're going to get into the problem of memoreach. Therefore, you tell me, are you allowed to use deodorant on Shabbat? Yes? Really? All kinds? What does deodorant mean? I know 3 or 4 different types of deodorant. So spray, it's liquid, right? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you're allowed to use spray deodorant, but only on your body. You don't spray onto clothing. That could be another problem, which we will talk about soon. But yes, spray deodorant is around. But what about stick deodorant? No, stick. Stick is solid. It's like a bar of soap. You just rub it onto your body as a stick. But if it's liquid, like a roll-on, roll-on is allowed. Roll-on is liquid. No problem. But the stick deodorant is a problem. You cannot use stick deodorant on Shabbat. Okay? So if you want to use deodorant on Shabbat, you should use spray or roll-on, because it's liquid. Both of them are liquid, and there's no problem of memareach. Like we say, he says here, therefore liquid insect repellent may be used on Shabbat, but not solid. If it's solid and it needs to be spread, it's a problem. What came up with this Shabbat? I think my wife got a burn or something, no? Or I don't know if this was last Shabbat. She wanted to put on some cream. There's cream against burn. What's that called? There's a few different kinds. But burn cream. There's Charmeal, there's stuff that has aloe vera in it. And the answer is you're not allowed to put on creams on Shabbat. But if she's in a lot of pain or discomfort. So here we can learn from what we do with babies. Babies, many times you have to put on cream. They get a rash, diaper rash. If the skin is very sensitive, and what heals their skin is to put on this special cream. There's all different kinds of cream that heal the baby's rash. Wait, it's Shabbat. We can't put on creams. What do? Even though it's a baby, and of course babies in general are considered halachically to have the status of someone who's sick. A baby's infirm. It's considered to be very sensitive makeup. Nonetheless, we still have to keep the laws of Shabbat. And so what's suggested if the baby's in extreme pain is that we don't actually spread the cream on the baby's body. You try to take a knife and you scoop out some of the cream, and so you're not smearing it with your finger. And your finger is already smearing on your finger. So you try to use some kind of usually you have a wooden spoon or something like that, and you put it on the baby's either in one place on the baby's bottom, and then when the diaper goes on, it spreads it automatically, sort of like not with your actively spreading it. Or better is you put a lump or a glob of this cream onto the diaper. So you're not putting it onto the body and smoothing it, but eventually it does get covering the area, and that's what I suggested to my wife as well. Now, if it comes out in a tube, that could be an additional problem because it comes out of a very small, narrow opening, and you're sort of creating a nice strip of cream, which is sort of like smoothing out the cream as it comes out the opening. But I think you could be lenient about that. And so basically, if you just take a little bit and you put it on the cut or on the burn, and you leave it there, You don't move it around. You're just sort of placing it on top. That can be done in a case of pain, in a case of need. Those are some pro tips, hacks, if you will, for keeping the laws of Shabbat. Even though you shouldn't be using cream because it could be a problem in Memareach. When there is a great need, we can work around it and not actually smear it in, just sort of place it on top and let the smearing get done by itself. Okay, another ramification is this, that most Ashkenazi Orthodox Jews do not use soap. A bar of soap also, when you use it, you're smoothing, essentially the soap bar gets smooth and your hands get a layer of soap on it. That's the whole point. You want that layer of soap to take the dirt off of your hands and whatever germs there are. And so the way you apply soap to your hands is by applying a thin layer and rubbing it in. And so most Ashkenazi rabbis say, do not use soap bars of soap on Shabbat. What you can do is using liquid soap. Liquid soap, as I said before, liquid is not a problem with Memareach. You're not smearing anything. Liquid is okay. Liquid soap could raise other issues. You could have a problem of, now we'll introduce another halacha that I was sort of almost talking about, and that is molid. When you lather up soap, you create bubbles. You're creating something new. There was no bubbles before. There was just soap and air and water. And now the combination of all of them makes a lather of bubbles. Isn't that a prohibition? It's called molid. Molid is a rabbinic derivative of boneh. And then it appears on page 282. And it says that in the last paragraph that the sages forbade perfuming a garment because scenting clothing involves molid, producing something new that did not previously exist, which is similar to performing a malacha. So it's like a rabbinic prohibition of creating something new. So you're not allowed to perfume a piece of clothing, but you are allowed to put scent on your body. That's what we were saying there. But here, with the soap, we have something to discuss. So at the bottom, page 283, it says, well, one may use liquid soap to wash one's hands. The general practice is to be stringent about bar soap or thick liquid soap. There are two reasons for this. Page 284 at the top. Okay, Yosef, will you read for us? First, yes.
Regarding this perfume, let's say before Shabbat, I apply on the nose, so it's okay, right?
Yeah, before Shabbat, of course, sure. And even on Shabbat, if it's liquid, you're allowed to apply it on Shabbat. Just not creams or lotions or something that gets smoothed. Okay. Okay. So top of page 284. What's the problem with using soap? First,
using bar soap or thick liquid soap resembles Menachem. Since using a bar of soap smooths its surface and thick liquid soap is spread on the hands or body. Second, when one uses these kinds of soap, it looks like he's producing something new, since the soap changes from solid to liquid. Although according to many poskim, this use is not technically prohibited because the person is using the soap does not intend to smooth it, and because the small amount of soap that is used is dissolved in the water. So it does not seem like anything new is being created. Nevertheless, since there is some resemblance of Memarayach and molid, the common custom is to be stringent and avoid using bar soap or thick liquid soap. Those who are lenient have an opinion to rely upon. If thick liquid soap spreads out upon being left on the surface, it is considered liquid, and all would agree that one may use it on Shabbat. If it is uncertain whether the substance is considered thick or liquid, one may be lenient.
what we call liquid soap that you buy in the store, and they have like these little containers, and you either push them down a pump or you squeeze them out. That's a very liquidy. That's allowed according to almost everybody. And what he's talking about, thick soap, is like a cream, like you have that sometimes in industrial garage or something. They might have this type of soap that's really thick, like a gel. Sits in a glob, and you take some of that. That really gets the stuff out. That may be more problematic in terms of mimareach and molid, but the regular liquid soap is fine. Bar soap, Ashkenazim stay away from that. That's another reason why we don't usually shower. Most people use bar soap. And so we're going to get to showering in section 8. We're finishing section 6. Wet wipes, we spoke about them yesterday. Let's read it inside. Go ahead, Yosef.
One may use wet wipes to clean a baby, to clean one's body in general, or to clean a table and the like. Some are stringent because they maintain that there is a problem of sechita, since when using a wipe, one presses on it and squeezes out some moisture, which would help in cleaning. Nevertheless, the lenient opinion is the primary one, because the purpose of wipe is to use the moisture on the surface of the wipe to clean more effectively. The purpose is not to squeeze out the moisture inside the wipe in order to wet the dirty area. If that were one's goal, he would simply wash the area with water. As long as the wipe remains damp, he has no interest in the moisture that has not been squeezed out and separate from it, and thus no transgression has taken place. Even if, by chance, a couple of drops were squeezed out, since one did not intend for this to happen, he is not he has not transgressed. As we've seen, if one went to the bathroom and has no way to wipe himself other than to tear a toilet paper, he may do so with a shinui, such as using his elbows to pull the paper from the roll. This is because the sages permitted transgressing rabbinic prohibition to avoid greater embarrassment. One may also, when necessary, wet the toilet paper so it will clean more effectively, as long as one does not intend to squeeze out water from the toilet paper, but only to make use of the moisture.
That's a big kula. I wasn't aware that he says that's allowed. I would say that's problematic to put water onto paper and then use the toilet paper that's wet. That's too similar to a sponge and for my liking. But he says you're just trying to get and use the moisture on the outside, just like with the wipes, with the wet wipes, the baby wipes. So he says that's allowed as well. Although that seems usually comes out, if you put water into toilet paper, it's much more wet than a wet one. Sorry?
It's soaking.
It's soaking. It's soaking. How can you even handle that thing? We were saying you're not supposed to, even hold. Right, if you use some tissue paper to clean up a spill, you're not supposed to hold it because you're going to be squeezing it necessarily. Same thing with this water that you put on a toilet paper. I don't know how he's very lenient about this, but I guess for the sake of to avoid embarrassment, he says the rabbis permitted a rabbinic prohibition. But better is to just use water by itself without any toilet paper. That's the best approach if you need water. In any case,
you need a special bidet.
Ideally, yeah, that would be great. That's allowed to be used on Shabbat. Yeah, a bidet. Yeah. But be prepared. You put in some tissues, a box of tissues, a bag of Kleenex into the bathroom, or pre-cut toilet paper and so forth, if you can. All right. Now we're going to get to other problems with brushing teeth, section 7, so that finally we can get to a shower. And we'll get there soon. So brushing teeth. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Yes, I think we're going to try, and then we'll do the song. We'll do the song very soon. Okay, so brushing teeth. Stephen, take it away.
Brushing teeth and toothpaste. One may brush one teeth on Shabbat to clean them and to treat bad breath. Similarly, mouthwash it may be used to freshen one's breath. However, it is proper to refrain from using toothpaste. The same way we refrain from using bar soap or liquid soap. While it is true that some forbid brushing teeth on Shabbat, either due to the concern of sehita,
Squeezing, yeah.
because the gum might bleed, or because the crystal of the toothbrush might break. Nevertheless, the primary halakhic position is that one may brush one teeth with a toothbrush like hakila. It is only in a case where it is almost certain that the gum will bleed that it is prohibited. One may wash off the toothbrush with water after brushing, as one normally does, even if one does not intend to use the toothbrush and is not considered a significant more removing the residue from the toothbrush also serve a purpose on Shabbat, as leaving it dirty would be disgusting.
Okay, so watch out here. Rabbi Melamed just said you're allowed to brush your teeth unless you know that your gums are going to bleed. Then you're not. So you have to know yourself whether your gums bleed usually or not. But what did he say is forbidden? Toothpaste. For most people, what? There's such a thing? You could even brush your teeth without toothpaste? It wasn't clear enough. You have to recognize. He said we don't use toothpaste, just like we don't use bar soap, and we don't use creams and lotions. So toothpaste is prohibited. Here in Israel, you can buy Shabbat toothpaste. Yes. Usually, there are some opinions that you can they do some fancy halachic footwork and say that, okay, you're not really intending for there to be a smooth layer of the toothpaste on your teeth. You're just using it to clean out, I don't know. There is room to discuss it.
You're not smoothing the gums of the teeth with the toothpaste. It's clean. It's a wash.
Right. Yeah, there's something, but then they say, well, you still you're smoothing the toothpaste onto the toothbrush first. And when you're taking it out of the tube, it's also problematic. It creates this nice bead of a smooth cylinder like.
Because it's solid, not liquid.
That's right, exactly. So because it's that type of texture, it's more problematic. There's room to speak about it because you're not actually trying to smooth anything on purpose. But the standard is we don't use toothpaste on Shabbat. Unless it's liquid and it's special toothpaste. Okay, now let's move ahead to bathing on Shabbat. All right. Yisrael. Good morning. How are you? We're about to do section 8 now, all about taking a shower on Shabbat. Okay? So we're going to start this. So you asked the question, so maybe, and I'm sure you would want to.
Bathing on Shabbat. That they would heat the water on Shabbat, thus transgressing both. Therefore, the sages forbade bathing one's body on Shabbat, even in water heated before Shabbat. However, one may wash less than half of the body in hot water. As long as one refrains from washing most of the body, there is no concern that one will succumb and heat the water on Shabbat for the lessened pleasure of bathing less than half the body. Even when washing each limb individually, one may still not wash the majority of the body with hot water.
Okay, so here we were thinking about, okay, what's the problem with bathing? We're thinking about, okay, each action you do is a problem. Maybe it's memareach, memachek, molid, so gozez, chovel. There's no problem with putting water in your body. From left field, the rabbis come and say we got a rabbinic prohibition of bathing because there was a social problem that in the ancient times people didn't have a shower in their homes. There was a central bathhouse. In the central bathhouse, they had an interest of getting business. They wanted people to bathe. And so they would heat the water so that people would come and bathe on Shabbat. Of course, you're not allowed to heat the water on Shabbat. So to avoid people heating the water on Shabbat, the rabbis made a gezerah enactment, prohibition, a rabbinic prohibition. Even though bathing itself, there's nothing wrong with putting water on your body, putting yourself in water. There's a rabbinic prohibition against bathing. Now, the leniency is that's bathing your whole body. But if you don't bathe your whole body, you only bathe a minimal part of a minority of your body, it's less than half, So then the rabbis are lenient and say, so you can obviously wash your hands and your face and your feet in those days. Whatever, as long as it's less than half of your body, it's okay. There's no rabbinic prohibition. What do you have to remember? You still cannot cause the water to be boiled on Shabbat. It's very hard to get hot water on Shabbat without causing water to be cooked. So you have to figure out a way to do that. So there are ways to do that. Water was pre-cooked before Shabbat and somehow you can turn off the system so that the cold water won't come in, then you can use the hot water. Not for bathing your whole body, it's rabbinic prohibition. But for bathing less than your body, you can. Okay? Less than half the body. Okay? Go ahead. We have seen
that one may use hot water already available in the boiler as long as this usage does not cause additional water to be cooked. We have also seen that many permit using water that was heated on Shabbat with solar power. According to this approach, one may use this water to wash the hands, face, and less than half of the body. However, one may still not use this water to wash most of the body on account of the rabbinic enactment. The prohibition of washing the body is specifically limited to hot water. One may wash the whole body in cold or lukewarm water, whose temperature is lower than body temperature. One may even turn on the hot water tap so that the water will not be cold, as long as this does not cause the cold water entering the boiler to be cooked, as described above. It is also important to note that the prohibition of washing the body in hot water is limited to normal circumstances. One who suffers greatly if he must go a whole day without bathing in hot water may wash his whole body in water that was heated on a Friday or by a solar boiler.
Okay, so standard is we don't take a shower. We don't wash our whole body on Shabbat. If you are in great discomfort, and if you're sure that you're not going to be causing any water to be boiled, it's not always simple to do. You really have to know a lot about, is it a solar power? Is it connected to an electric boiler in the winter time? Is it maybe immediately going to cause water to be boiled? Many times it is. But if you know for sure that you can use the hot water without causing any other water to be boiled, so then when push comes to shove, when you need to abnormal circumstances, then the rabbis were flexible with this gezerah. This enactment is in normal conditions. But so then you can have a hot shower. But otherwise, you can have a cold shower. Cold shower is fine. Even the whole body, that was never prohibited by the rabbis. You can have a cold shower. Okay? You can only use the lukewarm water if you're sure that using that little bit of hot water won't make more cold water come into the into the boiler, which, as I said, not usually so simple to know. So I would avoid using any hot water unless you really know what's going on. But cold water is fine. Cold water, you can shower even regularly if you have a cold shower. Not many of us do have an absolutely cold shower. My son is coming home today, Baruch Hashem, after like 25 days. In the army, he's got 24 hours off. So one of the things he's going to enjoy is shower. He hasn't had a hot shower for 3 weeks. It's crazy. But he had cold showers. And the other day, he just asked me, I'm coming home, I need a new watch. So what's wrong with your watch? Yeah, soldiers should have a watch. It's a pretty basic thing. Soldiers need to know what time it is. He had a great watch, Well, he lost it. How did he lose his watch? People all around Israel are being very generous to the soldiers. We're fighting a war here for our survival, and everybody's getting behind the soldiers. It's beautiful. So every day they have people coming and giving them a barbecue with meats and all sorts of steaks, and then people giving them gifts of this kind, of that kind. So there's this organization, this group of people that their thing is that they provide a service of ice baths. Ice bath. Some people think it's very healthy to have an ice bath. People pay lots of money to go somewhere and you get an ice bath. I've never tried it. It doesn't seem like I would like it. But some people do. Anyways, they came to the soldiers with all their, materials, whatever it is. Whoever wants to have an ice bath for free can have an ice bath. So my son had an ice bath. But apparently he took off his watch and he left it there. And so now we need to watch. But an ice bath on Shabbat is fine. It's not prohibited by the sages. It's a little abnormal. Most people don't enjoy that. But some people do. Some people do. It's fine. Now, even if you're going to shower in cold water or in warm water that has not been, where you're not going to cause any water to be heated, or even in hot water, when you're sure that no hot water is going to be cooked, because you're in pain or you're suffering, we said, in exceptional circumstances, you can shower, as long as you're not going to be cooking any water. There's still things that you have to worry about. Even if you got over all the hurdles of the rabbinic prohibition and the issues of not causing any water to be boiled, there's other issues. What are the other issues? Let's read about it now. Idan, one who bathes on Shabbat.
One who bathes on Shabbat must take care not to wring out his hair with his hands while washing or drying off, in order to avoid the prohibition of Krita. One may, however, towel his hair dry, since he is not interested in the water that is wrung from the hair and absorbed by the towel. There is no prohibition. A woman who always combs or brushes her hair after bathing must be careful not to wash her hair on Shabbat in order to avoid the prohibition of gozes. The sages further caution that if one washes in a river, spring, or sea in an area where there is no eruv, he should shake the water off himself when he gets out and thus avoid carrying the water the distance of 4 foot. He does not have to be totally dry. It is sufficient to remove the excess water that drips from his body. In contrast, there is no rabbinic degree that walking in Reshut Rabbi when wet from rain. There is no rabbinic against walking in Reshut Rabbi when wet from rain. This is because rain does not get one as wet as bathing, and even if there is enough rainwater on one's body that it could be considered carried, the sages were not stringent, since the rain falls on him against his will.
Okay, we haven't really learned these laws about carrying yet, but we did say in general that you're not allowed to carry. So if you're outside of the Eruv, if you're in the ocean, if you're in a place where there's no Eruv, then you have to be careful not to carry the water. If you have drops of water, if you're soaking and you come out of the water, you're going to be carrying, and that's a problem. So usually we avoid bathing. Now, what about for mikveh? Why would somebody bathe on Shabbat? Especially in the sea or in the river, it's because maybe he wants to do mikvah. So that's the next section that we're going to conclude with. Yeah.
He talked here about washing in the river.
Yeah.
And then he says he does not have to be totally dry.
When you come out, like you're dripping, right? You bathe, you're dripping with water. So if you walk at that moment, you're carrying all that water that's on your body. You've got drops all over your shoulders and on your hands and everything. And as you walk, you're carrying that water.
He's clothed?
No. Just your body still has drops on it at first. Wait for a minute or two, the drops dry off or they fall off. Then you can walk, and there's just a minimal amount of water that's considered negligible. But if you walk when you're fully wet, there's a problem of carrying outside the Eruv. That's what he's saying, even if without clothes. Yeah.
And Reshut Rabbi?
Yeah, we're going to get to that. That's we haven't learned those concepts, but that's basically an area where you're forbidden to carry on Shabbat. It's a public domain, and you're not allowed to carry there. Okay, what about the mikvah? Mikvah, it says on the top of page 289, one may immerse in a mikvah on Shabbat to remove impurity. But it's got to be in cold water, right? And the truth is, there is a custom of Ashkenazim, he says here, to avoid bathing even in cold water. For the sake of a mitzvah, it's allowed. However, if you look at the last paragraph here, the poskim disagree whether the rabbinic ban on bathing on Shabbat applies to immersion in the mikvah. In other words, if the mikvah is hot, many of the mikvahs are heated, well, you're not allowed to bathe in hot water on Shabbat, your whole body. Mikvah, it has to be your whole body. That's the concept of mikvah, is that your entire body is in touch with the water. Is submersed in the water. And so, what if it's a warm mikvah that's heated? Fine, you're not going to turn on the taps, but you still have a rabbinic prohibition of bathing. For the sake of a mikvah, some maintain the sages did not include immersion for the sake of a mitzvah in their decree, and that was may immerse in hot water as long as it was heated in a permissible fashion. Others maintain the enactment applies. And why may not immerse in hot water? Obviously, you have a Hasidic mitnaged divide here. The Hasidim who make a big deal of toveling in the mikvah, not only for the women once a month in order to purify herself from her period. Men go to the mikvah almost every day in some circles. So obviously they're very partial and they lean towards the heter, and many are customarily lenient and immerse in hot water. And those who want to be careful about it, make sure that the mikvah is only lukewarm. It's not as hot, and therefore everybody would agree that it's permitted. In any case, we don't go swimming on Shabbat. We don't go swimming on Shabbat. One is because it's like bathing. But wait, swimming in a swimming pool, that's not hot water. What's the problem? It shouldn't be prohibited. We said you could take an ice bath on Shabbat, right? So why not swim? Put on your trunks. It's like a classic thing to do on your day off. Go sit by the pool. Aha! There's a rabbinic prohibition. Look on page 288. The sages prohibited swimming on Shabbat because one might come to build or mend a raft. So, also, in the last 5 lines, he says, nowadays swimming has become one of the most common weekday leisure activities, prohibited as a weekday activity. Furthermore, there's concern that after swimming, people will wring out their bathing suits. Moreover, it is improper for the waste free time on Shabbat with leisure activities instead of dedicating to Torah study. Bottom line is that Orthodox Jews, for the most part, do not swim on Shabbat, whether it's in a pool, whether it's in the ocean, for numerous reasons. One of them being that we don't want Shabbat to turn into beach day, into pool day. But also there's issues. There's issues of this rabbinic prohibition. You might make a raft. There's also issues of outside the air of carrying. There's issues of wringing, like we said before. You have to know not to wring out your hair, not to wring out the bathing suit, not to wring out the towel. And the bottom line is, it's not Shabbosdik. Shabbosdik, have you heard this term before? The phrase means it's not in the spirit of Shabbat. It's not Shabbat-like would be the English translation of Shabbosdik. It's Yiddish. Shabbosdik. It's not Shabbat-like. This type of activity of swimming is problematic halachically and because of the atmosphere, because of the what kind of day we're trying to turn Shabbat into. I got into trouble when I was a young rabbi, I think 30 years old or something like that. And I came to my new town where I was the rabbi, and it was Shavuot. Shavuot in Israel is known as the holiday of water. And there was 1 or 2 families that had a pool in their backyard. And the kids wanted to swim. And they came over to me and they asked, hey, Rabbi, we want to swim. And then they were a little smart. They learned a little bit. And they said, what happens if we don't immerse our entire body? If we leave out one limb. You leave out one limb. And they just, it's a small, they just wanted to jump around in the pool, not necessarily swim, So I said to myself, I'm going through the halacha in my head, and I'm saying, well, listen, technically it's cold water. Okay? You're not going to build a raft. It's in a swimming pool. It's not near the ocean or a river or anything like that. And if you leave out your one limb, so you're not immersing your entire body. So I said, if you keep to all those conditions, you could have some fun on the holiday. Very quickly, the parents came over to me and says, Rav Menachem, when we built this pool, we made a rule that there's no swimming on Shabbat. And this was the first rule we made. And even though there might be some technical reasons in some way, it's going to change the way the Shabbat looks if we make it a pool day. And they were absolutely right. They got me. I was thinking halachically, and I was playing with the kids. It wasn't, one day a year, if they wanted to, have some fun, I think it would be all right. But there's other considerations, of course. And so that was a funny exchange. And it turns out one of them was like a national swim champion. And so she decided to, okay, I'll leave out one limb. Which limb? I'm going to leave out my leg. So she did like a headstand in the water. And like she could swim with one leg up the whole time. So, anyways, they had a lot of fun. But that's okay. I don't think there's any, Torah law violation. It's just, the parents are absolutely right. If you're going to make if you have a pool, don't use it on Shabbat. And then I got asked a question also by another individual who was on vacation with his family on Shabbat, and they rented out a tzimer, some kind of a villa, which had a pool. And you only go on vacation for 1 day, 2 days, and one of those days is Shabbat. Now there's little kids. What are you going to do with the kids all day? You're not going to watch TV. It's Shabbat, so there's a pool right there. All the kids are dying to go in. So he wanted me to allow him to go in, and little kids, they could probably go in, but they can't go in by themselves. It's dangerous. So he wanted to know, can he go in, stand inside the pool to help them swim? He's not swimming himself. He's just there. He's wearing his swimming suit. And, he's not going to... He's just sort of playing with the children in the water, not really swimming. And is that allowed? So also that, I discussed the issue with him. And technically, very hard to say it's prohibited to stand in a pool if you're standing up to waist high, and just, having the kids on their floatable devices, play around and splash. It's hard to prohibit that technically, but of course, it does change the character of the day. Essentially, you're going to spend all day Shabbat around the pool. You're sitting around the pool in the bathing suit, and that's not what Shabbat is for. Shabbat, you should be Torah and Tefillah, and family time, of course, and enjoyment, but not the same. It's not the same thing when you're sitting around the pool. So this is where I get into this idea, Shabbosdik. Or we mentioned before, Uvdin Dechol. Here it says on page, the fourth line from the end. Uvdin Dechol means it's a weekday activity. The rabbis have this sort of like Uber category, where they say, we want to make sure that the character of Shabbat is not ruined, and something which is too much defined as a weekday activity, or a non-holy, a mundane activity, it should not be done on Shabbat. And it makes a lot of sense, but it's a little vague. It's very hard to apply uniformly because we don't have the specific rules like all we do with the malachot. Is it spreading? Is it davar sheni mitkaven? It's more of like an overall principle, and that's why it's harder to define. But it is important that we keep our Shabbosdik, or Shabbat-like, or avirat Shabbat, in the atmosphere of Shabbat. Okay, with that, pretty much covered most of Volume 1, and we can be very proud of ourselves. Next week, hopefully we'll get into Volume 2, maybe 2 weeks, and then we're going to get into Hanukkah already. It's going to be with less than 2 weeks left before Rosh Chodesh Kislev, which is, believe it or not, heading towards winter time and Hanukkah. So, but first, before we do anything else, let's turn to page 231 and pray for our hostages and all of our brethren. The Siddur, page 231. And hopefully we'll choose the right key this time. The last one we did was the best one, right? With the lowest we went. So, wait for you to get the page. It was yesterday. Okay. Dan, don't forget to sing with us too. I don't know if you can do both at the same time. I don't know if it's possible. But you got to learn the words. Acheinu Kol Beit Yisrael Acheinu Kol Beit Yisrael 231 at the bottom Hanetunim B'tzara B'tzara Uveshivya Haomdim Ben Bayam Uvein Bayabasha. Once more, most people actually sing it Hanetunim Ba Tzara Uva Shivya, not Bitzara, Uva Shivya. It's like the definite article in Hebrew. Either one is fine, but I think I'm going to be singing it Batara or Vashivya, not Betara and Veshivya, but either one is fine. Here it says Be and V. Anyway, so Acheinu Kol Beit Yisrael Acheinu Kol Beit Yisrael Hanetunim B'tzara Uveshivya Haomdim Ben Bayam Uvein Bayabasha Hamakom Yiracheh Aleihem V'yotzeh Yitzah L'Yirvacha U'Me'afel Aleora V'Shiyamon L'Geula Hashta B'Hagala U'Bizman Kahali Hamakom Yiracheh Alev Yotzieh Mitzara L'Yirvacha U'Me'afel Aleora U'Shiyamon L'Geula Hashta B'Hagala U'Bizman Kahali. Thank you, he does. Nice. Very good. Wow. Amazing. Okay, so as you can see here, this is for the weekday. We said it this morning after the reading of the Torah, or after the Hagbah. The Chazan usually, as you can say here, says here, the Shaliach Tzibur, the leader, says the following while the Torah scroll is being bound. It says on page 230. And then he says the first 4 stanzas and everybody answers Amen. And for the 5th one, the last one at the bottom, everybody says it together. Usually we don't sing it every Monday and Thursday, but in some places they do, and especially in times like this, it's a good thing to sing. Some people sing the song at Suda Shlishit, a time when we have slow songs, and even on Shabbat. Nowadays, we need to pray for our hostages and everybody else in distress. Bezrat Hashem. Okay, let's do a song about Shabbat, because today is Thursday, the last lesson for the week. So let's open up, and we'll go to page 398. 397. 397. Now, the first, Kabbalat Shabbat, you've heard of Lechadodi, we sing it every week. And the truth is, only the first 2 stanzas speak about Shabbat. Shamor and Likrat Shabbat, that's on page 397, 396 and 7. The first 2 speak about Shabbat. Let us go out, greet the Shabbat. It's the source of blessing. But then, the rest of the poem really speaks about, what does it talk about? Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the holy city, and it's addressed, it's called Mikdash Melech, Ir Melucha, the royal city. Rise up from your ruined state. This is, of course, a more meaningful. Jerusalem, of course, is a metaphor for all of the state of the Jewish people, but also Jerusalem itself. That's the capital of Israel. And if it's destroyed, that means that Israel is destroyed, and we want Jerusalem to get up out of its be'emek habacha, from the valley of tears. And He will shower compassion on you. God will shower compassion on Jerusalem. It's strange. We're in the middle of a poem about Shabbat. All of a sudden, that one is about Shabbat. The next one, shake yourself off, arise from the dust. Put on your clothes of glory, my people. Let me share with you a little piece of Torah. It's in the footnote here. It's a wonderful idea. It says, the simple understanding is, okay, Jerusalem should shake yourself up and put on your clothes. Again, a metaphor is that the people should put on their clothes, right? We should be clothed with clothes of glory. But Rav Kook apparently explained that, it doesn't mean that the people should put on their clothes of glory. It means that Jerusalem should put on their clothes of glory. What's the clothing of a city? My people. So this is a call for the people. We want Jerusalem to be re-inhabited once again. Now, of course, Israel is the largest city in the modern state of Israel. More people living in Jerusalem than ever in history. So we merit to have a little bit of consolation. We seem to be going in the right direction. And Jerusalem is arising from the dust. Of course, we start off with Mikdash Melech. We're missing the core. We're still missing the temple, which is the center of Jerusalem. But Jerusalem is coming back. Anyways, we pray for Jerusalem. Essentially, we're praying for the redemption of the Jewish people. Karval nafshi gala, draw near to my soul and redeem it through the son of Yishai. There's Mashiach, right? Ayad ben Yishai Beit Halachmi, the son of that's King David, of course, was the son of Yishai from Beit Lechem. And draw near to my soul and redeem it. We're asking God to redeem us. We're asking Him to redeem Jerusalem. The next stanza on 398, Hit'orari, wake up, for your light has come. Rise, shine, kum yori. Awake, break out in song, for the Lord's glory is revealed on you. Ostensibly speaking to Jerusalem. Jerusalem's time has come to rise and shine, and all the Jewish people as well. Next one, Lo tevoshi, do not be ashamed. Do not be confounded. Why be downcast? Why do you mourn? In you, the needy of my people find shelter, and the city shall be rebuilt on its hill. Those who are despoiled you shall be despoiled. All who devoured you shall be far away. Your God will rejoice over you as a bridegroom rejoices over his bride.
Most difficult stanza.
You think?
L'imshisa.
Yes.
I was getting my tongue twisted when I tried to say
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's a biblical word. Shisa. Very poetic. Yeah. But the shasot is used in modern Hebrew. Also shesa, but the shasot is not from shesa is a break, a cleaving, a division. But the shasot is when you say to sick a dog on someone, to incite them to attack. It's leshasot. So incitement is shisui. So here, vayulim shisa shosayach, those who incite you, or those who basically it's an active type of causing destruction, causing injury. So those who attack you should be attacked. And of course, it's meaningful in the context of a war that we're currently fighting. Finally, we go back to Jerusalem. Next, page 400. Yaminu mosmol tifrotzi. Right and left you shall spread out. As I said, like here we are in Kiryat Moshe. This used to be wasteland. Now it's pretty much a neighborhood of Jerusalem. And the Lord you will revere through the descendants of Peretz. Once again, a reference to Mashiach. You're not wrong, Shmuel. We shall rejoice and we shall be glad. And then finally, the last one goes back, I think, to Shabbat. But all those middle stanzas all talk about Yerushalayim, and as I said, Yerushalayim as the symbol for the entire Jewish people. So maybe we'll do a fun one, a happy one, which is a wedding song. It's on page 398 and 399, the last two lines. Yasis alayich elokayich, kimsos chatan al kala. The Hebrew is, you could see the Hebrew on at the end of 399. 399, second last line of the chorus, before the chorus. Yasis. You see that? It's sin and sin. Yasis. What's sason? What does lasus mean? Nothing to do with horses.
Joy.
Joy. Sason is joy. It's another word for pleasure or happiness, joy. Yasis alayich elokayich. God will rejoice over you. Kimsos, like a chatan, like a bridegroom, rejoices over his bride. And this is the tune. And it's a great tune. We're going to do it to these words, and then we're going to switch over, and I'll show you another usage of the same tune, okay? Yahasis alayich elokayich ki himsos chatan al kala. Yahasis alayich elokayich ki himsos chatan al kala. Yasis alayich yasis alayich elokayich kimsos chatan al kala. Yasis alayich yasis alayich elokayich kimsos chatan al kala. Okay, got it? Yasis alayich Quickly, we only have a few minutes. Turn to page 657. 657. יום זה מכובד מכל ימים קיבו שבת צורה עולמי ששת ימים תעשה מלאכתך ויום השביעי לאלוקיך שבת לא תעשה בו מלאכה כי כל עשה ששת ימים יום זה מכובד מכל ימים קיבו שבת צורה עולמי יום זה מכובד מכל ימים קיבו שבת צורה עולמי. Back to 399. יהסיס עלייך אלוקייך כי הימסוס חתן על כלה. יהסיס עלייך אלוקייך כי הימסוס חתן על כלה. יסיס עלייך אלוקייך כי הימסוס חתן Kala ya sis alayich sis alayich elakaychi sos kitsos chatan kala. Idan, you ready to play at a wedding? Come on. This is a wedding song.
It's a little bit in between keys.
Is that right? It's difficult? You have to play. That's my fault for starting in that key. But you want to do a different key? Let me know.
Oh no, just like it's in between. Say it's in between an A and so it's
It's tough.
yeah.
Okay. Well, you got to be ready for the Jewish weddings. It's a little Irish. It's a.
Yeah.
Yachsis Allah Elokayim Kisos Chatan Kala Yachsis Allah Elokayim Kisos Chatan Kala Kimsos chatan chatan la ya Yasis alayich yasis alayich elakayich Kimsos chatan chatan al kala. All right. Shakoach, thank you. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Stay safe. Have a great one. Salat tavot. Yafeh, you learned that.